Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much. I'm Anna Barry, Deputy Commissioner of the DOT. Commissioner Jim Rediker would have been here today, but he had a Northeast Corridor Commission meeting out of state. We appreciate your asking us to make this presentation. It's been some time since I think this was the subject of a significant briefing or discussion here, and we're happy to bring you up to date. This has been a long process for you and the DOT. I think it verges on 3 years now since the DOT looked at its options and first solicited concept plans from potential developers. I won't belabor the process now unless you find it at some point interesting, but I do want to emphasize that we engaged in a very strenuous and rigorous selection process once we received our proposals. We spent literally months with a DOT team and a support team evaluating in a very detailed way the proposals. One thing that I really want to emphasize is that the proposals were subject to an evaluation according to the interest of our customers first. And we did not go to the final evaluation, nor did we open the financial proposals till we had ensured that the customers' interests were satisfied with the criteria that we had set up in our evaluation process. So coming through that rigorous evaluation process is Stamford Manhattan Development Ventures. They emerged as the selected developer just about a year ago. We've been working on negotiating several agreements that have to be consummated before we can actually give notice to proceed on the project. There are a series of development agreement, operating agreements, various real estate instruments that have to be effectuated to get the project started. But we're in the final stages of that. We are down to the final issues. It's been a good process. SMDV is a good business partner. We hope we are too. And we are happy to have them take the lead in making this presentation here tonight, but DOT staff are here, and I are here to answer questions that we have to. I just want to mention one thing. John will give you the details, but by and large, the parking locations have been by and large settled, but nothing has started design yet. So although we've got we have settled the rough parameters of the TOD in order to establish the financial feasibility and enough of the project to approve in a selection process. We look forward to working with the city as well as other stakeholders as we go through the design process. This will be a rapid design build type of process, but to the extent anyone can keep up with us, we're happy to have input. It's our intent to follow the spirit of the city's planning and zoning guidelines, although we don't believe we are bound by that. We know that's a controversy in the city right now. We're comfortable with our position, but we're going to have dialogue with everyone involved to see if we can get to an understanding of how best to proceed. So with that, I'd like to ask John McClutchie to give his presentation, and we're all here to take whatever questions you have to give us as we go through it or afterwards. John?
Again, I'm John McClutchie, JHM Group of Companies. I'm here with my son Todd McClutchie, who is responsible for all development and finance in the company, and Dan Montero, who's the senior developer of the company. As Anna said, we went through a long process in terms of the selection process, and let me start by telling you that we're very selective in terms of proposals or requests for proposals or requests for qualifications that we respond to. We look at the potential of a project. We look at what our vision might be, we look at what the requests are, and we look at what the terms of the requests for qualification or proposals happen to be. And one thing that we're clear on is if they don't have a level of confidentiality that we're satisfied with, we won't participate. We'd rather not be involved. A lot of what we do, in our opinion, is proprietary. We're real estate developers. The way we finance things, the way we vision things is something that's particular to us, and we're very careful to protect all of that throughout the process. DOT had that included in the process, and we were more than willing to go forward because of that. As Anna stated, it was a strenuous process, and one that we're happy that we were able to be selected from. I think this is an exciting project from my perspective in terms of the city of Stamford, and so I've been doing business developing in Stamford since 1977 or 78, somewhere around there. I live in Darien, Connecticut, as does my son, Dan, lives in Stamford. And although we're local, when it comes to development, we look at ourselves as being guests of a community. We're coming in here, we're looking at what the community has to offer us and what we can offer the community. There were some specific requirements in terms of the requests that DOT put out, and we've addressed those, but we've also enhanced those requests and the criteria that DOH had with our own concepts as to how this should work. And again, I've got 40 years of experience in developing all over the country. I have been successful in every development I've ever undertaken, and I believe this is going to be something that's going to be a paradigm, to be very truthful, for certainly the whole Northeast corridor, if not for a good part of the country. The proposal was to replace, there are two garages that exist, the 2004 garage, which is this L-shaped property, and the 1980s garage, which is the straight building here. The 1980s garage needed to be replaced. There are 727 parking spaces in the garage today. The idea was to replace those with a minimum of 1,000 spaces. And in doing that, we can never at any time have less than the 727 spaces that exist, nor can we infringe on any of the other commuter parking that exists without replacing it in kind at the beginning of the project. We came up with a concept to replace this parking by moving it to a surface parking lot that DOT has on South State Street. In order to do that, we had to find a replacement spot for the parking that exists on South State Street. We have this block at Manhattan, Atlantic, Pacific, and Dock is our property. We have taken that and we have laid that out to replace the surface parking in this area, as well as the employee parking that exists next to the train station here. So this lot will be a temporary lot that will replace what is here and here at this time. Concept is that we need to first put in the surface parking lot on Manhattan Street. Second, we need to build a parking structure on South State Street. We need to occupy this building before we can demolish the 1980s garage. We have 3 years from the time that we execute a development agreement to accomplish all of that. We're satisfied that we have looked at the schedule, we've worked through it with DOT. We're quite comfortable that we can complete the South State Street structure and demolish this building within that 3-year period of time. Once this building is demolished, the concept is to build a transit-oriented development on that site. The transit-oriented development, and I'm sure you all know what it is, but it's a mixed-use development that's going to include commercial, residential, office space. It's going to be anchored by the transit center itself. And the concept is to make the entire area more livable, to make it a commuter area that is also livable in terms of having other activities. It's a pleasant place to go to. It creates a livable, walkable area that can accommodate all of the community's needs as well as the commuters' needs. We believe we've come up with a design to do just that. Again, to go back over some of the initial requirements from DOT, during construction, we can never have less parking spaces than exist at the time we start construction. And again, that's the 727 spaces that exist in the 1980s garage and the existing parking, the surface parking lot on South State Street. We are going to demolish the original garage at the time that we complete the new facility on South State Street. That will replace all of the commuter spaces. There'll be pedestrian bridges between the South State Street Garage and the train platform, so people are walking directly from the parking garage onto the platform, and those are enclosed bridges, much the same as the bridges that exist out there today. We're going to include a wayfinding system that directs commuters to open spaces, so that when you're driving to the train station, any individual is driving to the train station, they can see on the signage where parking exists. Should they be going to South State Street? Should they be going to Station Place? Should they be going to Manhattan Street? I think it's going to be a much more workable process than what exists today, driving in, riding around, trying to find where you're going to find an open spot. We're going to eliminate the cash-only payments. We're putting in a system for paying for your parking space that is going to be totally automated. You can buy it on your iPhone, you can buy it at the gate, you can pay for it with your iPhone, with your credit card. There'll be no more cash receipts at the gate areas. And again, to the extent that we have commuter parking in any of these areas, the commuter parking is totally separated from any other commercial parking. That includes ingress and egress. They have their own ingress and egress. They don't have to be worried about being queued up behind people coming out of an office building or going to an event in a hotel. Again, when we're done, the 2004 garage remains in place. There'll be 975 spaces for commuters only on South State Street. At the end of the construction of South State Street, we'll be demolishing the building, the 1980s garage on Station Place, and once we construct the TOD, 146 commuter parking spaces, the ones that are being temporarily housed on Manhattan Street, will be permanently housed in the Station Place building. And again, they'll have completely separate ingress and egress from any commercial parking. There'll be new pedestrian bridges from the Manhattan Street development directly to the platform, and again from the Station Place development to the platform. We're working with DOT on an option for them to purchase an additional 150 spaces above what we have just outlined, 146 spaces here and the 975 here, so that there will be an option for them at some point in the future to purchase additional parking for commuters. And again, that parking will be separated from any commercial parking in the building. Wayfinding, in terms of people approaching the transit center, there are going to be signs that the city has located in the areas where you see the red dots. We will be feeding information into those signs electronically so that they can direct people to where spaces are available rather than have them drive around looking for spaces. There's going to be new payment systems. The system we're looking at is designed and developed by Amano McCann, which is, from what we can determine, probably the best and highest technology in terms of parking systems in the world. We spent a lot of time looking at different systems. We chose theirs, and DOT can speak for what they think of it, but obviously they chose us because of that being a primary consideration. We believe what we end up doing here is improving traffic circulation around Station Place. We're going to enhance bicycle and pedestrian access, and a lot of what exists today in terms of pedestrian vehicular conflict, I think, will be eliminated in the way that we're going to redo the streets as we complete this project. We're going to increase the kiss and ride spaces from the existing to 32 spaces, which is about double what exists today. And we're going to enhance the taxi and pickup area. Bicycle storage will be enhanced with 50 new spaces for bicycle storage, and we'll be providing 10 electric vehicle charging stations. South State Street is going to pass through the garage. South State Street will never be closed during construction. There will be temporary times where I'm sure in the evening there are going to be some inconvenience, but it's going to be minor, and it's going to be done at night to ensure that we're not interfering with commuter traffic at all. There are going to be intersection improvements made at each of the intersections that are identified here. And these are going to be as required by OSTA. Station Place becomes 2 lanes westbound coming from Dock down Station Place up to where the Metro Center exists. Where it will be 2 ways so that people can come east onto Station Place and make the turn into the Metro Center. It doesn't interfere with their clientele. The new garage on South State Street, again, is going to have direct access and have a bridge that goes directly from the garage onto the platform. So again, no one is walking outside to get to a train platform. The streets here are going to be enhanced with much wider sidewalks. The first floor of this building, the new transit-oriented development building on Station Place, will have retail facilities all along the ground level. The sidewalks will be wider by about twice what they are today to ensure that they are comfortable walking areas for pedestrians and to make this a real walkable area in terms of pedestrian traffic. On the other side of the station where the pickup area presently exists, those sidewalks will be enhanced and those will be widened as well in order to create pedestrian safety. There's a jitney service study being undertaken by SWRPA and DOT, which is going to, we believe, change the way the jitney service is being handled in this area right now. 16 new waiting spaces are going to be included along right next to the station, and this is actually where there was employee parking. There is employee parking today. That's going to be eliminated. The employee parking will be moved, and this will be for the convenience of commuters now. There'll be a new starter house and new canopies for the taxis that will be much more attractive than what exists today. One of the things you have to remember is that this area becomes the front door to this mixed-use building that we're going to be building. We need to make sure that we complete this in a manner that identifies the quality of the building that we're marketing, where the old 1980s garage is today. Extended kiss and ride facilities will be included on both sides of the station where they are today. Again, both areas enhanced with wider sidewalks, canopies, and up to a total of 32 spaces, which is about twice what exists. We're going to make accommodations for bicycle access to the future Mill River Trail. Don't know when that's going to be completed, but we are clear on the fact that we want to be able to connect directly to it. And bicycle access to the station in all areas, so that bicyclists can feel comfortable getting in here. As I said, there are going to be 50 new bike stations for them to park their bikes, so it'll accommodate a lot more than what it does today. Again, the bicycle shelter stations will be in these two areas. Electric charger stations, we're going to have 10 of those. I've talked to a lot of transportation consultants. This is where the market's going to go. There's going to be more and more need for these, and we're going to start with the 10 and see where the demand goes from there. Station Place, this is our rendering of what we perceive it to be when it's done. Again, you're going to have 2 lanes of traffic going in this direction. We're going to have raised levels in the street here to mitigate any conflict between pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic. And again, along here, this is going to be all retail space. So when you get off the train, walk out here, you're not going to walk into a blank wall any longer. You're going to find active space, and this is meant to be a 24/7 live, work, play environment. We're quite comfortable with the value of this, and given the interest that we've received from other developers who are specifically involved in retail and/or commercial space. This is a very attractive area and something they're looking forward to working on with us. These are artist renderings of what we're looking to do. The buildings, as you can see, are in my opinion, quite attractive. We spent a lot of time talking about them, looking at them. We want both of these buildings to be iconic. We want them to set a statement for what is the entrance to Stamford in the state of Connecticut and the exit from Stamford in the state of Connecticut. These will be the first things people see, and the last things they see as they enter and leave Stamford in the state of Connecticut. The improvements that you see here on the station itself, those are our vision of what it can be and should be. There is no plan in place for that at this point, although we have some ideas that we've been talking with DOT about how we think we can help to get some of this done, but there is no funding in place for that at this point. Everything else you see here is pretty much the way we are designing it, planning it, and marketing it. The only difference being here that we found that we can no longer put a green roof on the South State Street Garage because of some code issues, so that's been eliminated. But everything else you see in terms of the green roofs, in terms of the landscaping, in terms of the quality of the entrance is what we need to do in order to be able to drive the values that we're interested in. That's what we have come up with. We spent a lot of time with DOT talking about what we need to do in order to accomplish what their requirements are. We've talked to them about how we believe we're enhancing what their basic requirements are with what we have designed and what we're contemplating. And we have been talking with the city. We met with the mayor this past Monday, had a long conversation with him along with the planning department. And we continue to try to include everybody in the process. Again, as I said, there's parts of the process that are confidential. The contract needs to be completed. And as Anna stated, there's a number of different instruments that need to be completed along with the contract. It's a complicated, long process, but what it's going to do, in our opinion, for the future of Stamford is going to create additional growth and additional use of a public transit system that needs to be enhanced. We're looking at making a major investment in here, close to $1 billion. If you look at that investment, that's a private sector investment that we've found in work we've done in public areas before. It tends to leverage public sector investment, and we tend to be able to get the public sector to put more emphasis on the areas that we're developing. When they see a private investment such as we're about to make, we found that governments, state and federal, have been more than willing to work with us to enhance the facilities that are going to drive the value of this property. And that specifically is going to be the commuter railroad. I believe that there's a lot of changes that can be made. I think it's going to be it's not going to happen overnight. I think that the state doesn't have all of the funding available to do all the things that it would like to do. But I think this helps them set the stage to go and talk about getting additional funds from the federal government in order to be able to accomplish it. That's who we are, that's what we're attempting to do, and we're looking forward to working with everyone here and everyone in the city and with the state in order to have it happen. This is a true public-private partnership, and we really believe we've done public-private partnerships for close to 40 years, and we've done them very successfully. I don't see any reason why this can't be successful. I don't see any reason why we can't include everyone in the process. We can't always make everything the way everyone wants it, but we certainly can address everyone's concerns, and at the very least respond to why things can and cannot be done. And we can be very clear about doing that. In terms of, Anna mentioned earlier issues in terms of city planning and zoning and state sovereignty issues, that's between the city and the state. We're developers, and we want to get this thing done. And we've read the rules, certainly. We've looked at everything, and we're comfortable that the state is correct. As I said, we've met with the city and talked to them about it. That being said, we're not contemplating doing anything here that was outside of what was contemplated in the master plan that was done by Stantec initially. We're not looking at doing anything that is much different than has been done in any other commercial area within the city that exists today. We're looking at the same heights, the same types of density. We're looking at some parking changes because we believe that this is a transit-oriented development, and the whole purpose here is to get the public to use public transportation and use it better. And at the same time, I think, again, making this investment is going to have the public sector look at the investment that they need to make to continue to make this workable. That being said, there's a lot of dynamics going on right now in terms of development. If you take a look at this country as a whole, the two major demographics in this country are my generation, the baby boomer generation, 78 million people, and then you've got the millennial generation. The millennial generation is 80 million people. It's also the most educated generation in the history of the country, where 40% of them have education beyond high school. And what we're finding is that in all of the studies, I spent a lot of time with the Urban Land Institute, and not only reading their studies, but being involved with them on a regular basis and speaking at a lot of their events and sitting on their panels. And what we're finding is that the baby boomer generation is looking at downsizing. They've got an acre or 2 acres or 3 acres or 4 acres or whatever they have. They've lived in an area for a long time. They also have a home in Florida or South Carolina or Georgia or Arizona someplace. And they want to be able to go someplace in the winter, but they want to be able to come back to where their families grew up, because they have children and grandchildren that live in the same area. They want to go to the same churches and synagogues. They want to go to the same doctors. They want to go to the same hairdresser and all the rest of those things. They want to be the same. So they are looking at downsizing, and I think they're looking at more for convenience in terms of they don't want to have to get in their car and go someplace. They want to be able to walk out their front door. They want to be able to go into a cafe or a restaurant or a sports bar or whatever it happens to be and enjoy themselves. I think the same thing is true from the millennial generation's perspective for some different reasons. The millennial generation is one that's environmentally sensitive, and they understand the fact that too many automobiles cause problems. They don't necessarily have the ability to afford multiple cars. They want to be able to go to some place where they can take the train to work and take the bus to work or whatever it happens to be. And most importantly, they are connected. They've got one of these or one of those iPads in their hands all the time, and if they're driving to work, they can't be connected. If they're taking public transportation, they can. And I think providing all of these services at a transit facility accommodates all of that. You've got living area, you've got office space, you've got hotel space, you've got retail space. So it does become a 24/7 live, work, and play environment.
Thank you, sir. Jeff, I know you got some questions.
Yep. First of all, thank you very much for coming in to meet with us today. Clear from the presentation that you've given that you've put quite a bit of thought into it, potentially $1 billion, which is interesting. I think Stamford would love to have that tax base added. And it's clear that you've got a full plan of what you're looking to achieve over the next near term and a set of dates and ways that you can achieve it. Just had a couple of questions, if you could, for some things that it didn't pick up during the presentation. First off, can you give us an indication about how many other new units or square footage of apartments, office space, retail, and hotel you intend to add to the station area?
Right, so if you look at the TOD building, this building, you're looking at about 30,000 square feet of retail space, which will be along the ground level. Above that, you're looking at about 300,000 square feet of office space. Above that, you're looking at a hotel, about 155 keys, 155 rooms. And above that, 165 residential apartment rental units.
Okay. So we have a good amount more traffic drawn to the area, which is great. You also...
Actually, if I can just speak to that issue, remember that we're taking 975 cars away from that area. So as we move this parking over to South State Street, you're taking the 727 spaces here and putting them over here. So you're really reducing, in the beginning, a lot of the cars that are coming into this area. That building, the cars that were parking that building no longer will be going there, they'll be going over here.
But the 165 apartments, the 300,000 square feet of
Correct.
office space, the 30,000 square feet of retail, and the 155 apartment hotel rooms, I imagine some people will drive to those. So how many spots will you be providing in that building for parking for those tenants?
We haven't determined that yet, but it's a conversation we're going to have with the city as well as with the state. And it's our contention that we don't need to have as many parking spaces for office, residential, or hotel as would be required in other areas of the city. We do believe people are going to use the train to get here. We do believe that people who are coming from New York to work in Stamford will take the train and be working in this building. Some will be driving here, those who live in Connecticut, obviously. There are other, as I said, we're going to promote the use of bicycles, we're going to promote the use of other public transportation. In fact, some of the potential tenants we've talked to for this building have had conversations with us about the fact that if they choose to go here, that they would be looking to encourage their, financially, incent their employees to take public transportation. So this is meant to be a true transit-oriented development. Is it going to increase traffic? It's going to increase traffic, but you have to remember, you're starting by moving 727 spaces out of here. And again, by having this traffic flow come from the transit way, 2 lanes, 1 way on Station Place, I think is going to change the dynamics of that area significantly.
Right. And if I could, you mentioned that there won't be any interaction between the various garages and the various participants in each garage. So people that are in the Manhattan Street office building, when you build one there or whatever, won't interact with the spots that will be for commuters. And people in the new structure won't interact with the commuter parking that potentially will be in the new structure.
Correct.
Right now, most of the entrances and exits from the new structure are through the old structure. How do you envision the 1,000+ people to get in and out of the newer part of the garage, the 2004 garage? Where are those entrances and exits?
Can you put the... So, there you go. So we're going to have both entrance and exits out here, as well as coming through the back of where the 2004 garage exists right now. And they're going to be separated.
Right, but from within the 2004 garage, the 1,000 cars that are there, how will they get in and out of that structure?
As they are now. I mean, we're not going to interfere with them.
I come in through the old garage. I don't come in through the new garage. I park in the new garage, but I come in from the old structure.
Right.
And I exit through the old structure. That won't be there, right?
Front view there.
Right, you will not be able to access the 2004 garage necessarily from the front anymore. You'll access it from Atlantic
Right,
Street.
so you won't go in from
Right,
Station.
so
Place.
Atlantic Street has a single lane in and a single lane out, and it only holds about 4 cars in, and it backs up into the garage, which is why the current vendor doesn't permit daily parkers to exit it there anymore. How would all of that traffic come out through a single lane?
Working with the traffic designers right now, the idea is to have several entrances here and exits here as well, so that they won't interfere with each other.
So you lose the spots on the lowest level?
We're replacing every spot that is being lost. So to the extent, if we lost whatever number of spaces, 10, 15, 20 spaces here, those will be replaced in this facility right here.
So it's not your intention to have any of those people go onto Station Place to exit?
Correct.
So all the traffic will get forced onto Atlantic to go north or south rather than currently Washington or the other thoroughfares that people use?
And remember, Atlantic Street's going to be a different street. I mean, it's going to be, the bridge is going to be widened, it's going to be more, in terms of its width, what you see in Washington. So there's going to be a lot more area for cars to move through there.
Okay, that's all very helpful. How are you involving folks that actually use the station and the garage in your process?
Involving from what perspective?
Usability, travel, issues with the current garage, whether they come from east or west of Stamford or north or south of it, which direction they're coming in the morning, how would that, like Atlantic Street currently backs up for people accessing the garage.
Mhm.
Taxis stage in that garage and black up that whole entrance most of the day. Right now, given that there's several entrances and exits to the 2004 structure, there's still back up onto Atlantic Street. So I'm just curious if that's the only means of entrance and exit, and people have lost access through the other 3 entrances.
So when you say including, you mean getting information from? Okay, so what we've done so far, I didn't understand your question. So what we've done so far is we've basically worked with information we've gotten from Manning Pooler here at the city, what we've gotten from DOT, and worked with our own traffic consultants to try to address all of those issues. This is our first time talking to the Commuter Council. We expect that and encourage your participation in this, because as Anna said in the beginning, the full designs aren't completed yet. We've worked on conceptual designs, and we can make significant changes to those in order to accommodate issues if there are issues. We've looked at traffic studies that exist today in terms of what has been done, and we have calculated pretty much where this traffic is coming from. And that's sort of not as scientific as it will be before we're done, but certainly that's what we're here for, is to begin that conversation.
And there's still an OSTA process to go through,
Exactly.
State Traffic Administration.
Okay, one more if I could. So thank you for coming in this evening and for making that point about working with us. For several years now, we've been asking DOT to involve us in that process. It's the first opportunity we've had to see the plans. It's the first opportunity we've had to have any interaction with you at all. We've invited DOT to work with us on the problems with the existing flow in the garage. They've come down once to do that. In terms of the old garage, the 1980s garage, I appreciate that you need to build out new spots before you can take that down. So 2 questions with that process. One, the existing garage continues to deteriorate pretty rapidly. There are scores of spots that are taken out of service today. Rebar is coming through the floor. People hesitate to park in the old structure because their cars are getting hit with concrete. that falls from the ceiling, so the older part of the garage isn't as used as well as it could be. Given that it'll be several years before that structure is taken out, maybe this should be addressed to DOT rather than to you, but what is being done about maintaining the current garage during this process?
The DOT has a maintenance program. I think we're about to embark on some significant activities there.
Yep.
So you will see that we're going to continue to make repairs through our contractor. At some point in the development process, in the construction in the design phase probably of the new garage, SMDV is going to take over operation, and they will have responsibility for the maintenance, upkeep, and repairs to all of the garages. So we're committed to funding and performing all the necessary activities, and we have been planning to do them. Do you know specifically what?
Off the top of my head,
Yeah.
the next round, I'll
Yeah.
be checking with Craig.
We have
and
funded
with
and we're
Fusco, but
taking
we've
some-
done work in the past, as you've known. So, yes, we have.
I'm not saying you haven't, I'm just
No,
saying.
no, give it credit where
And
it's
we're
due.
going to do more.
And we'll do
I
more
hope
to
so.
prevent it
It'll
as
be
much
Glad
as
to
we
walk
can.
through the garage with you whenever you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
look at the
No.
problems.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we're also tackling some other issues, the door to the,
We're looking at the tunnel access.
that would be
There's a
great.
restriction on the door. We've got a plan that we're starting to look through. There's a couple of steps we'd like to remove. All of that takes time,
Mhm.
and commuters don't like to be interrupted during the time. So we're trying to advance as much as possible. I know that we've done some repairs just recently to the garage.
Yep.
Because there was issues in the 2004 garage with spalling, et cetera. And I know they've done some, and I know they're looking at doing more.
Yeah, grateful if you
One
could.
follow-up, oh, I'm sorry. I think-
Just- Rather than wait for the next meeting, when you get that information, if you could share it with the council by email or such, would be greatly appreciated.
So a really quick follow-up, just because it kind of ties in on Jeff's questions. Manhattan Street, currently, when you do that development, that doesn't have a dedicated spot now, right? The blue garage on South State, you had 308, the orange garage was 225, the red garage was 737. The slide regarding Manhattan said it was a potential for 150, but when that first gets built, there won't be dedicated parking for Manhattan, or will that tie in together?
So here's the way it would work, is that the idea is to build this building first, so we would move the commuter spaces from this space over to here. To the extent that we're not starting construction here, we could work with DOT to provide additional spaces until we begin construction. Once we begin construction, obviously nobody could park there until we're completed, and we're talking with them about their being able to have an option for up to 150 spaces in that building.
So you would envision when that building was complete, there would be parking provisions for 150 at some point?
Well, it's an option that we are trying to preserve contractually.
Okay.
We've had feedback from folks that that's a convenient location for commuters coming from that end of town. So we didn't have it originally in our requirements, and it wasn't originally in the plan that was presented to us, that we had here. But we wanted to preserve that option. We don't have money to do that right now. We'd have to exercise the option with the money to pay for it at a certain point in time in the design process. But we wanted to preserve the possibility that we could do it if we had the money and time. So, and we will find out over the course of, as we interact more on these, is there a sufficient demand for some spaces in the Manhattan Street site that would satisfy, the demand from that direction. But we just wanted to preserve the possibility.
Right now, Manhattan Street, as you're proposing, is just surface parking, right? Okay.
Temporarily,
Just wanted
temporarily
that
surface.
clear, because that's part of the replacement parking shuffle. Okay.
It's temporary parking.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's surface, so, but
What-
can you just explain to me the
Right.
one way to here?
Can I interrupt just for 1 second? The numbers that you're referring to are on the wayfinding signs. They have nothing to do with the total number of spaces. So the slide before that had the number of spaces.
Okay,
Okay, so it's 975 that are in South State Street parking.
okay.
And with the
Oh, I see that.
146 are in the TOD.
You got it, okay. I'm on slide 4, thank you.
Okay?
Appreciate it.
Can we get a copy of these slides just to,
It is on our website.
okay.
But
I wasn't sure if it was the same presentation
It
that
is.
was given to
It is.
the Board of Reps.
All right, so my question about the one-way,
Right, so
the
you've got-
short stub for the
Right,
eastbound.
you got two lanes going all the way through. You've got one
That's the
lane-
opposite the way it is now, isn't it?
No, today it's one in each
No,
direction.
It's one in each direction.
Well, 2 outbound to Atlantic,
Right.
1 inbound.
But the Metro Center Garage is here, and they need to maintain access to that. So there's going to be one lane coming off of Washington that goes up to, for them to access their garage.
So if someone turns in there by accident and doesn't want to go to the Metro Garage, how do they turn around?
They have to turn around and back out.
Oh, okay. Quite a few bus routes,
Remember, there's going to be
right?
signage out here too, identifying where you're going.
Okay. Quite a few bus routes right now go use Station Place, so I'm assuming that the reorientation, the rerouting of the bus system is going to be part of this overall.
So you understand that the traffic pattern, the traffic flow, that doesn't come from us, that comes from the city and the state. And this is the city's concept. We are addressing it. We don't have the right to change traffic on any city or state streets. So we're taking advice and we're putting it on a piece of paper. And we've gotten the rationale behind why this works, and we understand it, and our traffic engineers agree, and we think it works. Obviously, we're concerned about making sure we have good access to our building, the same as commuters are. And we believe that based on what we have been told, what we've read, what our consultants are telling us, that this does make sense.
And we'll be working with Connecticut Transit to ensure that we rationalize the service properly.
Oh, we'll be doing the study to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Saw that on page 8. Yes, John.
So, one of the current benefits of the old parking garage is that you can walk right into the station, so that it's not just covered to the platform, but it's covered into the station where there's food and restrooms and all kinds of amenities. And so the new State Street parking lot, it seems, is going to put people onto a platform, is that right?
Correct.
And so when they come onto the platform, they'll be coming out of a covered area and into something which is not covered and not protected. Is that right?
Onto the platform?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe the platform at this point is covered at that level, at that.
It's not.
Yeah.
John, you were mentioning you're going to add some additional exits from the current new section of the garage. And it seems though you're pointing to areas that would require you to go over, is that Malkin, Metro Green property? Have you?
This one you're talking about here?
No,
Oh, no, I mean back here.
back in there.
No, this is all DOT property.
Okay.
We're not
Okay.
touching anybody else's property.
Okay.
Dotted line.
Right, so the dotted line is actually the DOT's approximately there.
So that's their property line? Because
Correct.
so then were you going to have in the kind of the triangular area, you're going to have another exit there and it'll pull around the Station Place? Is that how you're going to get out or?
Correct.
Okay.
How many total train commuter parking spots are there now? How many will there be at the end?
There are 727 spaces in this garage. That's going to be replaced with 1,000 spaces.
You'll be managing the garage?
We will be with, yes, through our parking affiliate, which is All Pro Parking.
And the rates would be set in conjunction with,
We set the
That's
rates.
DOT sets all the rates. We just manage the process.
So DOT will own the parking garage over on South State Street and any additional spots, whether it's in the TOD itself or Manhattan Street, and they will maintain the rates for those spaces as well.
So DOT will own this building, they own the property. When we're done with the 146 spaces we're moving in here, DOT will own those spaces, they're not leasing those, they own those in perpetuity. We just manage the process for them.
the building, do you have any sense of how much parking there is now in total? And once the building is finished, how many spots there'll be?
Well, right now.
In other words, how much added commuter traffic, car traffic will there be to the area?
It's 273 additional spaces.
That's all with all the hotels, all the office
No,
space?
Commuter,
all
that's
that?
what I
There's
just said.
dedicated commuter spaces.
Yeah, no.
That's why I
What I'm
just
more
answered that
asking
question to him,
is,
but we need to have a conversation with the city and with OSTA in terms of what is going to be required in terms of parking. We believe that on a per square foot or a per unit basis, however you want to look at it, it's going to be less than what would be required in other areas of the city because of its proximity to the transit center.
what would, without any exception for the transit that's there, what would a building that size command in the way of parking spaces, or need in the way of parking spaces?
It varies by use.
Yeah, each
Yeah.
use is different, so.
I guess your question is, was there an analysis done on, okay, there's 155 hotel rooms, how much parking does that
Right.
need? You know, there's 165 residential units, how much
Correct.
parking? So I think his question is, was there analysis done on the various uses on if you were gonna conform to the town of Stamford, city of Stamford's zoning regulations, what that parking would be?
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to build a building with too much parking.
And it would more closely align itself to what the master plan has suggested for the area in terms of that TCDD, I believe that's what it's called, zone that exists today. And that's what the building, so that the buildings next to us, the Malkin Building and also Gateway.
Sorry, Terry, can I stay with this for just a second then? It seems to me you're running a substantial risk that the only way you just said that you could build this building is if you get some easement from the city on the number of parking spaces, or if the state's position that you don't have to ask the city is in fact correct.
Which
Is
leads
that
into
right?
what
I
I
mean,
was going to
Well,
discuss.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Two parts
Okay,
to the
so if I could-
answer, I think. I don't want to speak for DOT, but DOT agrees with us that this is a transit-oriented development. You don't need the same ratios you would need in other parts of the city. And there's been precedent set, as Ty just indicated, in terms of the parking that's here and the parking that's at the Gateway Center. So we're not, as I said from the beginning, we're not trying to do anything that's dramatically different than what the city has accommodated in other developments. So we're looking at some of the same ratios and some of the same alignments.
Can I just give a
Can I-
technical
I
piece
think
of
I was up-
information?
Terry did want to
I
have
was
a
just
stand up.
gonna
I'm sorry.
I think
say
Terry's
I'm
point is
just-
very relevant.
I think I have a few points that are very relevant,
I'm
and I
sorry,
would
sir.
like to address them, okay?
I'm done.
First of all, at most TOD developments, and this is textbook TOD, I've been involved with it for almost 3 years now, and what you're doing is, I think, spectacular. Okay, let me just say that to you up front. TOD development means you work closely with your TP and Z because you don't need as much parking. If you keep the same amount of parking as you have without a TOD development, it's not going to succeed. And things like having commuter parking lots that sit vacant on the weekends is very counterproductive to what the town of Stamford wants to do, what all of the knowledge corridor towns want to do from, New Haven to Springfield, what the Waterbury line wants to do. Jim and I met with Waterbury people and Derby people that are very hungry for transit-oriented development. So I think what you're doing here is you have to think outside the box on some of this stuff. Where you think it's going to generate more, many times it's going to generate less. You're going to have commuters that are going to be living there. You're going to have commuters that 2 people don't need 2 cars, they need 1.3 cars because they have this stuff. They can walkable communities, green communities. I mean, this is a great start. This is a model. And when you want to come to Newington, I've got 2 stations for you to take a look at. But no, we have to start thinking a little differently about this. So yeah, we're moving the spaces. It's going to be a little less convenient because we're moving spaces over here. But what's being built is going to be very good, and it's going to have more amenities for commuters. So you might walk an extra 50 feet, but now you're not just going to be in the station getting amenities, you're going to be going into these facilities here and they're getting amenities. So it's a whole different world.
And to your point, the existing TCDD regulations in the city accommodate exactly what we're talking about, so they've already contemplated a lot of this.
Okay, so Sue, I'm sorry. Sue, did you want to weigh in? Terry
I
did.
was just going to tell you what traffic engineering best practices are.
Which are?
And they do, for this kind of shared and TOD parking, can go as much as a 30 to 40% reduction. I can tell you conduct traffic is not, and planning isn't comfortable with that, but they have been comfortable up to 20% in the past and are continuing to do research on what will work best with the mix of development that comes in. So this is nothing unusual. It's done all over the country, all over the world. It's been done in Connecticut before in the past and in Stamford also. So really, as the development gets refined and the real picture develops, as you've already said, you'll be working with all these people to figure out what works best. And with the real-time parking information, that cuts down on all the circulation. It just becomes really more efficient for getting to your parking space quickly. Actually, a system is in place right now. It's in South Norwalk, and it works very well.
So it sounds
Some of
like
this-
it's still right. So it sounds like there's a set amount and then there's a normal reduction because it's in the area that it's in.
There are nationwide best practice
Right.
reductions. Connecticut has tended to be very, 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 very conservative
Hard to
in the
believe.
past, but we're looking for what
mean,
works
it's the
best
land-
for this development.
I mean, it's
Yes,
the
ma'am.
land of steady habits.
Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we have a few. So I just want to make sure Sue got it. So you're all set, Sue?
I'm
Okay, then-
all set.
All right, Jeff had a question, and that's why I sure
So we're a commuter council, so I guess we focus primarily on commuters and their needs, and they've been pretty vocal that parking is their primary focus at the garage. Vast majority of our customers on the trains neither walk nor bike to the station, they drive. And either they're dropped off, or they take a taxi, or they park there. And they've asked us, or at least they've asked me, to continue to focus on ensuring that they've got the capacity to park in a way. One of the things I think that's troubled them from the designs, we've seen it, we saw it with Gateway a little bit, where the access to the station isn't covered all the way through. That was sort of pointed out before, but people have harped on, today they've got the ability to put their stroller or their luggage or have somebody that's infirm walk all the way through in a covered environment that's protected from the elements. That won't hold true with either Manhattan Street, the way it's envisioned, it looks like, or State Street parking. That will go to what, over, that's covered to all 4 tracks?
Well, it's our understanding that this platform is going to be extended and it's going to be covered in the end, so.
And that will have access to, so they'll have to, again, go, so unless the Tiger Grant comes to fruition and we get covered, which we haven't seen yet on
Right.
Stamford, but today, the way Gateway is, it ends, their covered walkway ends, it opens onto an open area where people who want to access, for example, New York bound tracks in the morning, need to walk through an exposed platform, walk down, up to the station, go up, over, back down again. So I'm just curious if you've given any thought or worked with the state on taking that State Street parking garage and facilitating the same type of parking and station access that they have today with a fully enclosed environment, or if that's totally off the table.
It's not off the table. You know, there's a lot we'd like to do, and we will continue to work to try to do it in various ways. We understand that what you have today, and we'd like to do as well as we can. We don't have the funding at this time to do all that we'd like to do, but we will continue to try to develop it and prioritize. As we look at all of our stations and the things we have to do there, we'll prioritize all of them and try to do as much as we can to preserve the attractiveness of the station and its utility to the customers.
I just would point out that at one point, we were concerned that the new parking could be as much as a quarter mile away from the station, and it looks like that we're well within that, obviously. In fact, when I'm looking at this, it seems to me that the State Street parking piece is no further away than the current parking is, in terms of how far you have to walk to get to the train. In
Not
fact-
to tracks 2 and 4 today.
I'm sorry?
Not to tracks 2 and 4 today, but yes to tracks 3 and 5.
Right. So the big piece, I think, that would make this much more amenable is what Jeff was just talking about and what I was leading toward when I asked the question to begin with about the covered parking. Not covered parking, but the covered access to the station. If you can get people from the State Street garage all the way to the station in a covered, climate-controlled way, I think that this will be a much more attractive option for the current commuters. And as Jeff points out, we are the commuter council. Those are the people that we're responsible for, responsible to, rather. And the other people that you want to bring in here, I mean, your retail space is great. You know, it's nice to have offices space. I'm a big fan of transit-oriented development. I think it's a great idea. But the commuters who are coming out of State Street Garage are not as likely to go over and access your retail area as they would be to simply go into the station and get that cup of coffee and be on their way, for the most part. So I think the major piece of traffic here from a commuter standpoint is walking from that garage to the platform and back. And the more comfortable you can make that, the better. And as we all know, winter here in Connecticut is nasty. So they're,
Summer too. I mean, yesterday was brutal.
summers too, thank you.
Can I just point out that the project that ConnDOT is just completing, and I don't think it's open yet, but the new pedestrian overpass over Atlantic Street, this sort of does what you want it to do, because it now makes it possible to go from track 4 all the way across Washington Boulevard.
Washington Boulevard,
I mean. And, you know, so Gateway has direct access. Otherwise, it drops down. This is covered.
Right.
Sort of a Soji screen look to it, and then underneath the tracks, and then right into the structure. So from a commuter's perspective, that's a pretty short walk. I walk up here every day. Pretty easy.
But we understand, we're listening to this, and as we, again, start to map out our investment strategy for our stations, we're going to listen to what the customers have to say and try to prioritize it among all of our stations. But we recognize the critical importance of Stamford. It's a station that I think more people come to than go from these days. And most people may not use bicycles, but there's a lot of diversity in the access, and we appreciate that, and we're going to work those priorities into ours.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Oh, yes, sir.
Two more questions if
Yes,
I
sir.
could. I don't want to monopolize everybody's time, so I'm sort of breaking it up a little bit. You mentioned that the city is the one that asked you to convert Station Place from a two-way street to a one-way
They
street?
didn't ask us to do it, but they.
No, can I make a little correction, though? That's actually a DOT-owned driveway. South State Street, formally,
Station Place.
Station Place.
Station Place is a driveway,
Technically.
Okay.
of which there is rights for one development, Metro Center, has rights to access through our driveway to their facilities.
So the reason I'm asking, I guess, is for those of us that experience it on a daily basis, currently for the kiss and ride and for the taxis, people back up all the way onto Atlantic
Correct.
and further through, and when people try to turn onto Washington, currently there are 3 lanes, 2 heading north, 1 heading south, that backs up all the way, that impairs access to the garage, so it backs all the way up the street. You're going to convert that now to a single lane street at the end heading into Washington to facilitate
No.
the cross town?
No, this is, you can't see the arrow. This is 2 lanes all the way through, and an additional lane coming up.
Okay, so it's going to be 2, so
Correct.
right now, we've got Gateway coming online, which will add additional traffic to Washington. We've got the new State Street parking that will add traffic to Washington. And you've got all of State Street, all of Station Place traffic heading now onto Washington for a street that backs up when there's only the existing parking going on there. Just curious, how many more cars you think Washington can hold, or how you've measured that?
It's hard to show, but there are 2 access points into the South State Street parking garage. You have the access off of Washington, but there is a direct access off of South State Street under the building here. Okay, so you will be directly accessing, coming off, I believe that's exit 7, going over the bridge and going right into the parking garage.
I'm looking more at people coming out in the afternoons when that's the greatest traffic problem, and heading north on Washington. With the way lights are timed today and the way that traffic flows, traffic trying to head out of Station Place and on north onto Washington backs all the way up Station Place and is struck all the way. If you look further down What happens in Washington further south, the traffic builds up several blocks that way as well. Try and get through the pincer under the new Washington Boulevard Bridge. So unlike Atlantic, which will be rebuilt, Washington's already been rebuilt, it's not going to get any wider. It's already a traffic bottleneck. We've got half the traffic going toward Atlantic to ease some of that today. All of that will now go toward Washington.
Well, we may have some information that might help now, but let me offer this. The question about traffic obviously is bothering a lot of people. When we did our SEPA document for this, we did a sort of a consolidated impact analysis and ran a traffic analysis of that showed what the consequences would be and what we'd have to do. Now the devil will be in the details and actually mapping that out. But we understand that there are a lot of stakeholders who are interested in knowing more about the traffic impacts and what we know about them and how this will be processed. So I'd like to suggest that maybe, we're actually having a meeting next week to put together a presentation on this for another meeting, and maybe we could come back with some of the details at another meeting, maybe the next meeting.
That would be great. And also, you're more than welcome to stand with us or sit with us in traffic any evening at Station Place and actually observe how things are done in practice. There's quite a bit of areas where they use traffic calming and they widen the sidewalks. All people do is now pull up alongside the wider sidewalk and block traffic. It was never intended for them to do that. The idea was for them to go around those. They don't. There are signs saying no left turn. People ignore them. So all of the things that were put in place by people engineering the traffic flow with a goal of directing traffic in a certain way were great concepts. In practice, they don't work. So we'd love to have you down to actually sit with us and watch how traffic really flows through that bottleneck, or the same thing in the morning, people try to drop people off at the station.
And then regarding the traffic, they have an additional meeting, they would come back to us with additional information as well.
Yep. So
Tim,
look
did you have
forward to
a
hearing it
question?
next
Yeah,
week.
Thank you, Jake, so.
I just want to make a point about, there was a lot of questions and comments about parking and the parking requirement and the parking that would be provided for the other TOD uses that are going to be placed in the development. Anyone who's commuting out of Stamford, getting on the platforms in the morning, see how many people are getting off the trains. Every single person getting off the train represents one less car that's needed for parking. I mean, one less parking space that's needed. And I think if you stand there and see the pulse every day of people getting off the trains and going to UBS, or getting off the trains and going to, the other big office buildings in the area, I think you're going to see the same experience, probably even more so, for an office building that is directly connected to the train station.
If I could just touch on that. There's great times to park in the Stamford Garage. One is between 6 and 6:30 in the morning, there's plenty of spots. And one is after 8:30 or 9, because there's a ton of folks who get off the train in Stamford, get in a car that's parked at the Stamford Garage, and then go from there and drive. Same thing's true on weekends. There are a lot of folks who live in New York, park their car in the Stamford Garage, take the train up to Stamford, and then go skiing or the beach or wherever it may be, get on 95 here in Stamford and go away from there. So there's quite a bit of flow in and out, and I think with RBS restricting considerably its flow, with the trading floor at UBS half the size that it used to be, many of the desks empty, a lot of people that we're relying on are going away. I think by the same token, I think this week the city approved 2 new apartment buildings going up where the post office used to be. So there's plenty of other folks who will be using the station and potentially may have been in the apartments that you were envisioning building, but I do expect that, we're seeing a higher vacancy rate for commercial property in the city of Stamford. There's plenty of open restaurants if you want to buy one. Rents are getting lower because there's less and less to it. Hotel vacancy rates are off a bit. So I think that when this plan was envisioned a couple of years ago, it was the first one of its kind, and there was a lot of huge opportunity. Since then, regardless of why it's taken us as long as it has to get here, a lot of other folks have filled in that slack.
And that trend is not only here, but it's farther east along the line, because we have them going all the way into the shoreline east territory for us. People from New York are migrating for cottages and stuff where they'll leave a car.
Yep.
So, I'm not trying to take away from the thunder of
Yeah,
Stamford,
no,
but it
agreed.
is all the way.
But I'm
up the
saying,
line.
I think we could probably measure it because you have the garage counts. You know how many people leave in the morning versus how many people come in. So you can confirm that.
Yes.
And the parking control system that will be installed in this project will give us a lot more information and ability to control what we should control.
Any additional questions from the council? All right, thank you very much, gentlemen.
It was great. Thank you very much. Good to finally get to meet you.